top 10 underpowered units. Now, a lot of you guys have been requesting this specific video, which OPTC units should get a buff in the future. And so I went ahead and put my top 10 characters which I think maybe deserve to be a bit stronger compared to some of their counterparts. This is not a list of the weakest characters, but more so a list of characters which I think would benefit the game if they would get a bit of a buff, a bit of a boost in certain stats or abilities. So we're going to go ahead and start with number 10, which is going to be Sabo the Revolutionary, 6-star Sabo. Now, when it comes to 6-star characters, there's a lot of factors such as the amount of pools that it takes to get these guys, the amount of gems that you're going to spend farming the skill books and the EXP and the sockets. So since you're going to invest so much time and energy into these characters, I feel like they should definitely be very good, and definitely should not be disappointing when you pull them like some of the other I'll be featuring later on. But Sabo's right at the cusp. Very good, good stats, good captain ability, and good special, but I do feel like he could be a bit more powerful and definitely help establish finally a good freedom team in the game. And why do I think he needs a bit of a buff? Well, pretty much his raid boss version is a lot better at most situations, and the 1.5 times attack just isn't cutting it anymore. 2 times is nice, but it does require a turn. And now most characters have delay protection, so you can't even delay it. So it's definitely something that I think could be reworked a little bit, is special. Next up we have Massacre Soldier Killer. Now this is a cool character, really a cool character. He has really good attack, so he's good. The problem is he requires 10 skill ups, and even at 10 skill ups, he's still pretty much unusable in terms of his special. Now why do I think that lowering his special would be a good idea? Well, it's because a lot of people still can't pull the 3-2i Robin. So, Massacre Soldier Killer would be a perfect unit for crocodile teams. Not only that, but you know, even if you have his special maxed, and if you consider the fact that he's a good blue character, which you know is one of the weaker cerebral classes in terms of the colors, then he could make a powerful unit, a good replacement for Robin. Or even if you have Robin, you could definitely use him instead. I think that in general, he could definitely see use if it went down to, I'd say, 15 turns. I think they should lower his cooldown to 15 turns at max, and he would see a lot more play. Maybe even 18 turns, who knows. But next up we have Coliseum Ace, Firefist Ace, 2nd Division Commander. Now, this is a character that I'd say out of all the Chaos exclusives is probably the weakest. He's not bad, he's definitely not bad, but I definitely think that he can use a little bit of work. Not just on his stats, his attack is pretty low. And his captain ability, you know, it's decent, it's not too bad. But when it comes to his special, I think it has a lot of potential if they just did one thing. And that is, make it a multi-stage special. So the reason that you want a multi-stage special with one of the ones like Ace, who happens to reduce the cooldowns, is because there's a lot of bosses nowadays that will set all your coolbacks as soon as you get to the stage. But with a multi-tiered special, if you're at level 3, you go down to level 2, you can still reduce your cooldowns, and then that really helps out. Now the fact that it's not a multi-stage special and a 9-turn special could definitely, like I said, use some work. Definitely would love to see that, considering the difficulty that it is to gonna max that Ace. Now, next up we have Strong World Shanks, another one of those 6-stars that I was talking about. Shanks is, in my opinion, a very polarizing character. He's actually a very good side lead, and he has a really actually pretty awesome captain ability. The problem, similar to what I had with Sabo, is that HP based characters are just really difficult to run nowadays because most bosses run some sort of HP cut every turn. So even if you're not getting attacked, a lot of times you're still going to be taking damage, environment, poison. It's getting tougher and tougher for these HP based captain effects, but don't get me wrong, he's still a very good character. Now, where I really think he needs a buff is his special. His special at 20 turns at max. Think about, like I said, all the work you're going to put into your character to have it still max at 20, something that most people won't use unless you're going to stall for it. But let's be honest, most of us aren't going to stall 20 turns for that special, unless like, you know, something we can't clear. So definitely I think should go down to much lower than that. Next up, we have Dorry / Broggy of the Coliseum. These guys I think would be awesome to get a buff. Primarily because they have one of the coolest mechanics in the game, which is the return of the tandem. Tandems for a long time just were never a thing. The only time you really used a tandem was back in the day. If you had the 5 Marines, then you could pretty much use them for turtle time, and that would be a really awesome team to run. But after that, tandems sort of went away, and they haven't really came back, besides in this one case where if you have Dorry and Broggy, if you use them together in a tandem, then you get a 1.4 boost for tough units for the next turn, or powerhouse units. But unfortunately their stats just are not that good, and their special, while good, giving a 2x boost to powerhouse if you use them at the same turn, it's 19 turn at max. So again, one of those where like I definitely think they should lower the cooldown and buff their attack a little bit. Overall though, really cool mechanic. I hope they do some more of that in the future. Now, next up at number 5, you're starting to get into some of the characters that, you know, people will start to complain about. First up is Basil Hawkins here at number 5. This guy pretty much is on the list for one reason alone. He's never been used. He's been out pretty much since the beginning of the game almost, you know, early days. And he still hasn't found, he's still never used. He hasn't been used. His attack, while in the beginning of the game, was pretty good at 1295. Right now, it's just not, you know, you're never going to use that for an attack. Unless you're crossing, you know, 1350, 1400, you know, your stats are decent. And his special is interesting. His special actually cuts HP of enemies by 10% and then reduces defense by 50% for 3 turns. But the problem is, because it's been so long, there's just too many characters that do that even better. So in my opinion, really awesome would see to make it a 20% health cut, and now we're talking, there's not too many, I think there's only 1 or 2 characters in int colors that do a 20% health cut, so that'd be really awesome. I mean, you're pretty much talking about Fujitora at that point. Now, next up we have Boa Hancock, the Warlord. Now this is, you know, when it comes to Legends, I've seen it time and time again. People get that red poster, and then they can't wait to see what Legend it is until they find out it's Boa, and then they're disappointed. She's good, don't get me wrong, but it's one of those, like I said, these characters take so many pulls to get that you should never really be disappointed when you pull one of these. So I definitely think that Boa should get a buff. Her captain ability is just not as good as Marco's, nowhere even close. It does boost recovery, but unfortunately the damage reduction on Marco, again, HP captains, that's why Marco is still very popular today. Even though he's an HP based captain, his damage reduction really helps out. And she does stall and heal, but again, at this point I'm starting to personally use Leo as a good delayer over Boa. So it's one of those things where there needs to be something. I'm not too sure, to be honest, but maybe her captain ability. I think her captain ability needs to be reworked, or her special needs to be a bit boosted. Now, next up, we have number 3. This is going to be Tony Chopper and all of his base forms from the story mode version. Now, the reason I'm putting this on here, not only because I'm a Chopper fanboy, so, you know, I always want to get better versions of Chopper, but primarily it's because when you're starting the game out, you have a good Sanji, a good Luffy, a good Usopp, very good Usopp, good Nami and Mirage Tempo. But unfortunately, all the Choppers are really bad. The best stats are not very good, and the specials are pretty bad, and captain abilities are mediocre. So I definitely think that for early game players, it would definitely benefit the game to boost, at least give him one good form. I know there's Monster Chopper, but remember, he's a raid boss. So I think getting a good story evolution for Tony Chopper would definitely help out early game players, and it would just be awesome, to be honest. So kind of disappointed that he doesn't have one, but maybe in the future they'll do something cool. Now, number 2, Sogeking. Talking about base story mode characters, Sogeking is one of the first ones you'll run into, assuming you do the worst and evolve your Golden Pound Usopp, which you should never do. Now, Sogeking, obviously the reason is, like I just said, you should never evolve Golden Pound Usopp, and that's pretty much a big flaw in design, because you're supposed to want to evolve your character, you're supposed to want to work towards them and evolve them, and you know, but when you have a character that you don't want to evolve because his evolution is just not worth it, then you have a problem there. His stats, I think he gains like 50 attacks, so pretty bad. And his special is pretty much the same thing with a little bit of damage added, but 5 extra turns. So never evolve into this guy unless he gets a buff in the future. Make him 15 turns, just like Golden Pound Usopp. Give him a little bit of damage, and we should be good to go. I would probably evolve mine at that point. Maybe he gets an extra socket or 2. I'm not too sure. But definitely, I don't know what they were thinking with this one, and I feel like they should have buffed him a long time ago. And finally, at number 1, we have Emporio Ivankov, the raid boss version. Now this is one of the earliest raid bosses that ever came out in OPTC. And the reason this is number 1 is because I've never seen anyone use this character on a team despite being a 40 stamina raid boss. Really, I'm not too sure, again, what they were thinking with this one. It requires Dex, Int, and Quick characters, so you know it's kind of difficult to build a good team for that as a captain. And then on top of that, his special doesn't really do much. It just gives himself a blue orb, and then randomizes your other orbs. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that making him a Heracles style special would be awesome for fighter teams or whatever. If you don't have Legend Jinbei, I would definitely farm that. But for now, because it is random orbs, I mean, I don't know if I'll ever see play. So, with that said, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully, you enjoyed this video. And again, I want to shout out a giveaway that I'm doing, guys. It's going to be running until the end of December. You can check out my channel for that. And overall, let me know down below, like always, brand new ideas for new top 10s. I have a few, you know, that I have written down still that I want to do. But like this is one that a lot of you guys requested. So keep requesting them and I'll do them pretty much. So that's it, guys. Thanks all for watching. Talk to you guys in the next video. And until then, peace.